Hello and welcome to the Pickup WNBA podcast. I'm your host, Cathryn Eicher.
And I'm your other host, Freddie Rivas. What's up?
And this is episode 94, baby.
Yes,
94.
baby. Pickup. 94. Pickup.
uh Thank you to everyone who continues to support us on YouTube and helping us get out of YouTube algorithm jail. Much appreciated. Please remember to follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Freddie, you're better at that than I am.
Yeah, at the Pickup Podcast. YouTube at the Pickup Podcast 1050. Hey. Yeah, follow us, help us out. We appreciate it, and yeah, we're gonna keep the good stuff coming. I'm so excited to just jump into everything that we have going on. I mean, me and you, but really the WNBA.
Truly.
It's a very, very fun time.
Before we start, Freddie, I didn't tell you this before we started recording, but I was at a birthday party earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
A little sauced.
Good.
I've been out in the sun. I had 3 vodka coolers and
Okay.
then rushed home to record this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hot off of that. So if,
Wow.
we'll see if I am a little looser, if I'm basically the same. Just letting you and everyone else know.
Coming in a little bit hot, a little bit sloppy. That's good
A little
stuff.
loose, a little all that,
I had a really tasty Mexican Caesar today because there was a Mexican pop-up market near me and the food was delicious. So I also got a Mexican Caesar. It was great. I was baking in the sun, but no, I didn't really get drunk. But my little day news is that I'm not gonna lie, I was being pretty charming at this market, and the vendors were like, "This guy's great." And it was going well for me. I was getting a lot of extra food here, extra food there. And this one vendor was like, I don't have a restaurant right now. I'm actually cooking out of my house. So why don't you bring you and your family and some of your closest friends and I'll cook for you in my home.
Whoa.
So shout out to actually, you know what? I took a picture. So I'm going to shout them out. If you're in the Toronto area, check out Sabor Veracruzano. Amazing, the best plantain or plantain, if you say it that way, I've ever had in my whole life.
Wow.
It was incredible. So
you can send that to me and I can try and put it in the show notes.
I will. I'm
There
gonna
you
send it
go.
to you.
Also, am I close enough to be invited to this dinner?
Yes, you're in.
By default, because you mentioned it here. I feel like you would have forgotten about me otherwise.
100%. I had you X'd off the list. I made a list. I cut you off, and I was like, you know what? I can't bring Cathryn.
Oh my god! Can't take me anywhere.
Yeah, she'll pound some coolers, and
bring my own coolers. It's his house.
She'll smear enough ice me. It's no good,
Oh my god. All right. Literally, it's not a Smirnoff Ice, but we'll move on. Okay. Big news. Okay. I was about to start off with Gabby Williams, but I don't think that's actually where we're starting. There was another foul by Chennedy Carter on Marbury of the Connecticut Sun the other day, and this is going viral again, and people are asking, is this a tough foul? Is this out of line, etc.? I have some thoughts, but Freddie, where are you at on this?
I have some. Yeah, I have a bunch of thoughts. So I'll start with kind of I'll start small picture here. In general, I'm not one to kind of be very pro punishment, and I think that really a lot of the I'm a little bit old head with basketball, where I feel like a lot of fouls and particular reviews really slow the game down. And I think if someone's going for the ball, I kind of don't care that much. However, the swipe down on Mabry from Carter was like really quite aggressive, which is like, okay, fair enough, right? It looked like there was some contact to the nose, right? Could have been a broken nose. Even that is like, okay, maybe that's whatever, just a flagrant one. Which to me, by the way, just to say this, flagrant one, the way, like, in the rule book and like the way I have sort of internalized the two rules is, if you're reckless, like the intention doesn't really matter. If you're reckless, it's a flagrant one. If you are intending to hurt, it's a flagrant 2. So for me, what I saw, flagrant 2. And I think part of what I saw too is after Carter connected with Mabry, it was the body language. It was like, and I don't mean you don't have to run and help the player up, but there was like the immediate sort of like casual, wasn't a full high five, but it was a low five to another Sky player. And it just looked and read body language wise like Carter was like, I took you the fuck out, and I don't feel like no ways about it. So that to me is like, that's the type of aggressive behavior where I'm like, it's part of the game, but also I'm not talking like fine territory, but for me that's like, you're out of the game because it's more than just reckless. I have other thoughts that, I'll go to you, let me just not hog the mic and let me give it to you and I'll come back to other thoughts later.
Look, was it a flagrant 2? Sure. But I think the only reason why this is news is because she fouled Caitlin Clark earlier in the season. And that went viral.
Very fair.
And now there's this like microscope on her. And, if she fouled Ryan Howard in early May or whatever it was, early June, who would have noticed? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I think there's a reason this is making the news. It has, there's a target on her back. And anyone else, flagrant 2, they get kicked out of the game. It's barely news at all. You know what I mean? Like, there's just, it's like, it was a moment in the game. She's an intense competitor. It was a bad foul. But beyond that, what are we doing?
You know what I mean? I think it's a great point.
Is that what you were going to say?
No, actually, I hadn't even really, I guess I had like subconsciously thought about that, but that's why I think it's a great point, because I really like, not because I didn't think of it, but because, because it's sort of like, it's really true. And it does apply to the situation. I think, to call a couple things out in the open as well. Another, viral foul on where it's Carter fouling a white player, right? So it's just to call that what it is. And I also think that this drama around Mabry, kind of demanding a trade, the we'll get to this a little bit later with Gabby, but it's been a tough pardon me, it's been a tough week for the Sky. I mean, the Asia Wilson like buzzer beater today, yikes. That's tough.
Oh, and did you see that block she did on Angel Reese? Oh, yes.
But yeah, it's been a tough go culture wise for the Sky, because Mabry, has joined the Sun and it's just like really killing it. And by the way, I feel like the other point I was going to bring up was when I was like looking at like, what's the history here or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of like YouTube compilations of Marina Mabry being a dirty player herself. So, and she's wild. Yeah. And she's also tough. Yeah, so I think it was a little bit of Mabry's
there could have been a little ticky-tack stuff that didn't, catch everyone's eye.
Exactly, right?
Led up to that tension for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was I mean, this kind of stuff it's a part of the game. It's juicy. Ultimately, it's not that big of a deal. And I think you kind of have the most poignant thing where, Carter's being built up as this sort of dirty player. And I think that she's done a couple of things, right? She's tiptoeing into that dirty player conversation. But what's complicated about it as well is that she's also a really good player. Like, she's not one of these players who gets subbed in the game and is just like there to like hustle and throw some elbows and stuff. And like, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players that are really, really good. And then also are, have a dirty history, right? Like Taurasi and, Mabry. And like, I think hyper competitors also are pretty rough. You're not going to get a lot of players like Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart, who are like amazing MVP level players who also are pretty clean in the sense of like, they don't have a history of like doing shitty things.
Yeah, and I just think like these, in my personal opinion, and maybe this will change as time goes on, I don't inherently think she's a dirty player because she had 2 hard fouls this whole season that we're aware of. You know what I mean? Like maybe there were other hard fouls in games that I haven't seen, but again, like I just feel like maybe it is. Maybe she's going to evolve into someone who develops an even bigger reputation, but I just feel like this lens on her is like possibly unfair. And there are players who are, quote unquote dirty, but they have like a whole other reputation, right? Like if you take Diana Taurasi, for example, like I love Taurasi. She's one of my favorites. When she kicked that door down when they lost the finals, for example, I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious. Not that, oh my God, that's wrong. How dare she destroy property? And I'm not saying I'm right for thinking that way, but that's how I felt. And I'm sure a lot of people felt that way. So it's just interesting to me how it's like some people, and I know Diana Taurasi is polarizing, but it's like some people will praise you for that type of behavior and some people won't. And I just feel like Chennedy Carter is like someone on a reality TV show who gets the villain edit, but they're not necessarily like the full villain. That's kind of what I feel like is happening right now.
That I love that. And I think this is what, like, parsing through this kind of stuff is what I love about sports, because I feel like a lot of narratives just get written and then taken for what they are, right? Like, I think maybe I got a lot of casuals in my life or whatever, but sometimes people will ask questions where I'm like, oh man, that's like, no offense to these people, but it's like, you're kind of like asking me like the headline. Like you clearly don't know much more than the headline.
All summer long, I've had people come up to me and ask me why Caitlin Clark wasn't on the Olympic team.
Exactly right.
All summer long.
And they can't name the players on the team. They haven't.
Yeah,
really
and my answer
research.
is because she's not one of the 12 best players in America yet. I think she will be. I think she's close, but she just isn't yet. And they're always surprised. They're always surprised.
Yeah, because it's sort of that's the way in, and then there's no like follow up. It's not like, hey, I think she's better than Jackie Young. Here's the stats to prove it. It's like I'd sort of be like, oh, okay, cool. But it's sort of just like, why isn't she on the team? And it's like, I don't know. Like, why don't you think? But yeah, like to your point about Taurasi, I think the Alyssa Thomas back-to-back like brutal fouls on Angel Reese earlier in the season, they're long forgotten. I was watching a Sun Liberty game the other day, which was a great game, and the broadcast was raving about how intense Alyssa's defense was on Stewie. And they were like, they were teammates 3 weeks ago, and now, like, Thomas has given her the business, sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, that sort of like that bad reality TV edit thing. I agree.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out as time goes on. It doesn't I don't want to jump categories here because we do want to take a little look at the playoff picture, but it doesn't surprise me that the Chicago Sky as a whole would have a bit of a, come back down to earth moment, because they are a really young team. And I feel like they have kind of exceeded expectations a bit. They've exceeded my expectations, but they've lost 3 in a row. And these are the kinds of things that young teams go through. So I feel like people, I saw on social media that people were like, Teresa Witherspoon should, like, pull her from the games and stuff like that. I think we all just need to take a deep breath.
Yeah, that's wild.
You know what I mean? Like, let's just, young teams need time to figure things out.
By the way, that video of, before that game, all the Sky coming in and like not acknowledging Marita Mabry was like low key kind of intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like whatever happened there, like whatever the tea is, I don't know where that analogy goes. The tea is hot, but whatever. Tea is spicy. Whatever's going on with the tea, it's been steeped. How about that? It's been oversteeped.
All right. We should move on. Other big news, Gabby Williams back in the league. This was reported last week as a high possibility, absolutely 100% official now with the Storm. I have a question for you, Freddie, because you were the one kind of taking the lead on this. How do you know how she actually got around the prioritization rules? Because I was actually kind of surprised that this was allowed to happen given that circumstance. I mean, I'm happy she's in the league.
Yeah.
Like, it makes things interesting. But I was surprised. I was like, how is this possible?
I wish I had an answer for you. And I do love the nitty-gritty, rules and all that kind of shit. But to my understanding, is basically like year 1 of prioritization was like, okay, if you're late for training camp, like slap on the wrist. Year 2 is like, if you're like, if you miss training camp, we're gonna like fine you or something. And then year 3, which hasn't happened yet, of this prioritization rule, if you are a certain amount late, like you can't play for the season or something like that.
Well, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
I think the prioritization rule it's sort of like there's punitive stages, and I feel like we're at stage 2. Okay. But again, I could be wrong. And because there's been no mention, like, in this interview, there was a lot of good conversation, and there was no mention of like, I had to, sit out X amount of games because I didn't come to training camp. Like, that hasn't come up. So I think, to your point, I'm not sure that she has been punished.
There's been a lack of reporting around that part of it for sure. But yeah, I mean, regardless of that, she's officially on the Storm. Huge for them. Obviously, they're looking to make a playoff push. The press conference was interesting. She had a few, let's say, honest things to say. Freddie, can you help us break that down?
Yeah, honest is the right word. It was very frank. She's very frank.
Yeah.
So in regards to Seattle, like choosing Seattle, she said, she's in conversation with other teams, but like Seattle, she has a great relationship with them. And then, we've touched on this before with Angel Reese being like, come play with me, Gabby Williams. And she's like, yeah, maybe somewhere else. And, Gabby Williams.
Yeah, that's right.
like she's played for two teams, right? The Sky and the Storm. And so she then sort of used that and, subsequent questions to basically say like, yeah, I have a great relationship with the Storm. They treat their players well. And then she said, I'm not going to name names, but we know there are owners that don't. And I've played for franchises before where you're training in the same gym as some ladies doing Pilates. So like Seattle's a serious organization. So I'm happy to be back with them. So that's like fairly direct dig at the Sky, but I think it's also broadly a we and you always have this sort of, it's almost like a circular conversation, right? Like that. We need to call it something. We need to think of something that defines, like, I think maybe we were bouncing around the idea of like the small money owners versus the big money owners, and the small money owners, Gabby Williams wasn't pulling a lot of punches, and she was sort of saying like, yeah, like these owners are.
For Candace Parker to join the Aces and then be like, I haven't had my own locker before. Wild.
Yeah, she also played for Sparks. So that's a double dig, right? Like,
yeah.
And then, that went into prioritization, and Gabby Williams has been the face of prioritization because of the French league, because of her talent, because she's a first round pick. And then, obviously I think really, really highlighted that by how good she was on the international stage. And yeah, so she sort of talked about how, that it shouldn't be a blanket rule, and that if the WNBA is going to hire international players or bring in players that play internationally, that should be a conversation between that player and the team. And you can't have a prioritization rule without like stepping up your money game,
right?
Like you can't punish players for wanting to make more money and then also not pay them more money.
She also, because she said something to the effect of like, America isn't everything.
Yes, yeah, that was in that same sentiment.
Yeah,
she was like, listen, like America is not the world. I know, right. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's the reality. And yeah, I think, I mean, I agree with her, right? And it's, and this is someone like, this is coming from someone like, I don't really watch the other female basketball leagues around the world. Like, I want the WNBA to be the very best league. I think it is the best league in the world, but I also feel like, a big part of solving this problem is having, women get paid more and bigger contracts, and like it's less of an issue if players are just getting paid appropriately.
Yeah, because then they'll just choose you,
right? Like that kind of just sorts itself out. So I mean, yeah, it was she spoke frankly, so I thought that was good on her. And also I thought this was a really good strategy on her part. But she answered this prioritization question, and then obviously there's like this like silence in the room, and she's kind of like smirking a little bit. And it's one of those like moments in an interview where you can tell everyone's aware that this is like going to be clipped and aggregated. Like as soon as she said it, it was clear that it was going to be like, yeah, okay, this is going to make the rounds. And yeah, so then someone sort of timidly comes in with another prioritization question, and she kind of said like, I've spoken on this. I'm not really going to speak on it again. Also, it's not just me. Jonquel Jones, Breanna Stewart, I think she said Satu Sabali. I've all spoken against this prioritization rule. So, when it comes to, because it was about the collective bargaining agreement that's coming up, and like how it's going to impact. So I think, I think she took a step back to be like, listen, it's not just me. Okay. I'm not the only person that makes money internationally, and I'm not going to be the spokesperson against this rule. Like, I don't want the league to come at me.
Was she asked the question, like, were they implying that it's just her?
No, but they were sort of like, after she said that, the follow-up was kind of like, so how do you think this is going to impact the next CBA? Like, is prioritization going to be a big rule? And
I think it, yeah.
she was like, yeah, I do think it's going to be a big rule, but it's not just me who's against it. And then she named these other players, which I thought was smart because she's taking a little bit of pressure off herself and saying, like, I'm not some rogue force here who's against this. Like, other people are against it.
You know what I think is going to happen? No, I don't think it's going to be a rule after the next CBA.
Me either.
Like I respect her opinion, but the way this league is moving forward, I think, and the amount of money coming into the league, I think the salaries I think the cap could more than double by next year, and there won't be a need for prioritization. That's actually what I think is going to happen. Time will tell, but yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think we're being optimistic either. I think it's, based on the TV rights deals and just the way the league's going, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think it's almost like a relic of the past. Right? I think like chartered flights, prioritization, these are things that, like, obviously rightfully so, you have talked about so much, but I think, like, onward and upward, there's other issues to fry, and these won't be issues that we will be talking about for much longer. I don't think.
I completely agree. When we look at the state of the WNBA and what was working, what wasn't working in 2020 versus 2029, and we look back at this decade, it will be one of the most transformative decades we've ever seen in a league.
100%. A lot of people have made the Bird, Johnson, Reese, Clark comparison, me and you included. And I think that, people have made this comparison as well, but year 25 of the NBA was tape delay. You couldn't watch live games.
Right.
So, if you compare where the league's at now, I do think people are going to look at this time as a transformative time. And, 5-10 years from now, it's just going to be this like weird fact where it's like, did you know that, at this time there was not chartered flights? Did you know
the games weren't even broadcast in color?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Give me shit like that. Yeah, exactly. Did you know the Fever didn't have a fever?
Oh God.
Yeah, bad joke. My bad.
Like
move on.
They were named after the pandemic.
Yikes. Move on. Let's keep it rolling.
All right. So we wanted to take a look at the playoff picture, and Freddie, you sent me you divvy up the categories, the topics, which I appreciate, but you wrote number 3, playoff picture. So what exactly about the playoff picture? I always do this because we have very different brains.
We have very different brains.
So I'm always like, what about the playoff picture? This is a conversation we have all the time, but I didn't get the chance to have this conversation before because I was not wine coolers, vodka coolers in the sun. So what about the playoff picture, Freddie, is standing out to you right now?
It's a beautiful picture. It's if you paint the picture, it's delicious. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of ways to slice this. To me, I think one of the bigger things, for me, like one of the major stories of the entire season is just how good the Lynx are. So with their win,
they've won 6 in a row as of this recording.
Yeah, and they with their last win, they clinched the playoffs. So they have clinched the playoffs. And Collier I feel like has some serious claims at being the second best player in the WNBA.
Ooh.
It was sort of like
that's
it was
spicy.
sort of 1, 2, 3. Last year it was like, okay, is it Stewie? Is it Asia? And then like there's sort of like a bit of a cutesy pick to be like, is it Alyssa Thomas? And not that Alyssa Thomas is like not worthy of being in that conversation, but it was like, in my opinion, it was really between those two. This year it's like it's Asia alone. And then I think it's sort of assumed that it's like, well, I guess then Stewie's number 2. But I think that, and this isn't like a knock on Stewie, but I just think that with the Sabrina's rise and Jonquil Jones is playing good. Vandersloot's like, the Liberty are just so cohesive that it's not quite like Stewie's just kind of doing her thing, and she's amazing. But the Lynx, it's the Collier show, and she is really, it seems like getting better every game. It's funny because like we didn't talk about her that much in the Olympics. But I feel like she was like a little bit injured maybe, or like just saving herself. I don't know what the deal is, but
I don't think she was injured, or I didn't hear that.
she had something going in. It was like a nagging injury. It wasn't like a serious.
Sure.
It was like a plantar fasciitis or something like that. It was something.
You're projecting now?
I am projecting. I am. I have plantar fasciitis. It's the fucking worst. Yeah. So there's a couple other kind of playoff takes, but that's my big one. My big one is that the Lynx have gone from being like, wow, the Lynx are actually pretty good, to being like, the Lynx, I feel like you have to acknowledge that they're contenders.
Okay, I like this take. I don't know if I agree yet, but I think this playoffs is going to be potentially a very defining moment for her in her career. I think this year's playoffs could very well be projected to be that. I think something that is interesting that, people are talking about it, but, it could be a bigger story. And, the Aces are 18 and 11.
Yep.
And, they're 4th and 5th in the West between them and the Storm is like neck and neck. And it's odd because I feel like the Aces still carry themselves as champions, as a champion contending team. And I don't know if it has to do with the off-court drama, which we talked about extensively in last week's episode. But there's just something there that just doesn't feel quite right. And it's like one of those things where I don't want to bet against the Aces because they're phenomenal, but also like low key, what's going on? Is it just because sustaining that level of effort and greatness is just hard to do? And like, you see it in the NBA a lot, like even with the Warriors, like after they had their 72 win season, they didn't win as many games the next season, but they still went on to win the championship kind of thing. Like, is it that sort of thing, or are there actually cracks in the armor, so to speak?
I think you nailed it with the first one. I think it is that sort of thing. I think the wear and tear of excellence is not something that gets talked about enough in sports. And I also feel like, you can run through the motions and you can have tons of talent, but there is sort of like a special, kind of like je ne sais quoi to like having that extra, like whether, like let's take New York, for instance, like there's like a revenge element, and it's like, that's propelling New York. And I think it's an excitement thing. I would also say with Chelsea Gray, like being injured for such a big part of the season, if I'm an Aces fan that's like not worried, that's why.
Right.
Because I'm like, don't worry. When Chelsea gets cooking, we have Chelsea, Jackie, Kelsey, and Asia, and you're done. Like,
yeah,
those 4 are gonna kill you. And I think that that's probably true, but at the same time, like with the fatigue type stuff, right? If you're using the Warriors analogy, It's like, well, what if when Chelsea gets back, Asia's overexerted herself and she's tired? What if Chelsea doesn't get back? What if Chelsea gets back and like Jackie fades a bit?
You mean like not just back because she is back, but you mean back to how she was before?
Yeah, back to like an elite sort of like end of the bucket and end of the buzzer fadeaway player form. Like the Aces beat the Sky on a game-winning bucket today. Last year, the Aces just mopped the floor with the Sky.
Yeah.
Like it was like they were just putting on a clinic every game.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Because the league around them got better.
Very much.
Right? Like we just talked about the Lynx, Commissioner Cup champions.
Wow. You almost said that without disdain.
Almost.
There was still disdain.
The Liberty feel like they're more cohesive than they were a year ago. The Connecticut Sun are still really strong. And now with the Storm, I feel like that's a major X factor going into this year's playoffs. And we have yet to see how this new core with Gabby Williams is going to come together.
She hasn't played a game yet.
Yeah. So, and they don't have a ton of time to figure it out. So, I mean, they're all very smart players on that team. Like, I'm sure they'll figure something out. But yeah, like it's just, it was a race to the very end. Like we knew it was going to be the Aces and the Liberty last year as the last two standing. And now it's like, we don't know. It's not a foregone conclusion. So yeah, I'm not ready to bet against them, but I'm feeling like it's more on edge for them than it was before. Is that fair to say?
Very fair. I will also add, Mabry for Connecticut is such a big addition. Like such a big addition. It's a shooter and a defender and like a gritty player, and it's a really, really like a seamless fit. I had her stats up since she's joined since she's joined the Sun this year. Where are they? Yeah, so 14 points a game, 41% from three, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. That's like 28 minutes a game. That's like a major addition in 5 games, right? So maybe that's just like a little excitement and it fades or whatever. But that is a huge pop for a team that was already really good.
Yep, I agree. Anything else you wanted to say about this, Freddie?
The other thing I'll say about the standings is that Chicago's in big trouble because the Dream have been playing better, and the Dream look like a better team than the Sky. So, Indiana and Phoenix are kind of like, they seem like they're locked into their 6-7 spots.
Yeah, I agree.
But that eight spot, is really, I think, going to come down to it, or it might even be a scenario. Like if I had to predict, I think that the Dream are going to like have a decent finish in this last like 15 games, and I think they'll end up taking that Sky spot, like not easily, but like
another spicy take. I love it.
I'm coming in hot.
Yes. All right. With that, it is time for our badass player of the week.
It is.
Who you got, Freddie?
Okay, so my badass player of the week, is Collier. So 28 points a game, 4-0, and 8.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, steal and a half, and she's shooting a blistering 44% from 3, and just doing it all, just absolutely doing it all. So Collier,
amazing. Yeah, you're really sucking it. You're really being a Lynx homer right now, I have to say.
I'm being a Lynx homer, and I'm betraying my old team, Sky, because I've been going hard at the Sky this whole podcast.
Right.
So
yeah, you really are.
Yeah.
All right, I'll allow it. Look.
Thank you. Oh my god.
A slightly different pick, not necessarily a player of the week, but a player that absolutely deserves mention, and that is Tina Charles, who just became the second highest scorer in league history behind Taurasi, which is absolutely wild. You know, she has an interesting trajectory in that, you know, I'm looking at her career, you know, started in the league in 2010, was with Connecticut, then was with the Liberty for a long time, and she's been on different teams every year since 2021. Like, she's really been bouncing around the league a lot lately, I guess, in like the later stages of her career.
She's kind of like a hired gun.
Yeah, but you know, but she still has like pretty good stats. Like, if I'm looking at her stats this season, just shy of 14 points a game. Rebounds, sorry, this is like I'm blaming the vodka coolers. 8 rebounds. Am I reading this right? My God. 2 assists. Like, those are great numbers. In 28 minutes. Like, yeah, it's just funny to me that she keeps bouncing around. But regardless, hell of an accomplishment. We just have to shout that out. Absolutely. Yeah.
It is also insane to see the number where it's like, wow, Tina Charles, she's got 7,505 points, and it's like, that's so amazing, that's insane. And then you look up, and Diana Taurasi has 10,000
over 10,
points. That's like, what? It's just such a big gap from 1 to 2.
Unreal. All right, Freddie, it's time for your fun question.
It is time, but there's something that we both want to shout out Maya Moore.
Oh gosh,
jersey retirement for the Lynx, and I think, if it's okay with you, I will do a speed run through of her insane accomplishments.
Please do. And then we'll watch the documentary.
Thank you. I was going to say it if you didn't. Folks, we have been meaning to watch the Maya Moore documentary for
if you're new to this
solid
podcast,
3 years. It's a running bit. It's a solid 3 years. Here's the deal. We do want to watch it. This isn't like a we won't watch it. We mean to watch this documentary.
There's a Sue Bird one. There's a Candace Parker one.
Yeah, we gotta have a doc party.
Off-season doc party.
Watch party right. with the listeners. Let's do it. Okay, here we go. You ready for this?
Yeah.
McDonald's All-American.
Yeah.
Gatorade National Player of the Year. By the way, there's like there's so many accomplishments. I'm just gonna not list a lot of them. But College Player of the Year, 4-time WNBA champion, she's a WNBA Finals MVP, WNBA MVP, 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-Star MVP, 5-time All WNBA first team, 2-time All WNBA second team, 2-time All WNBA defensive team. She's been a steals leader in the league. She's been a scoring leader, rookie of the year, which is not a surprise at all. And then also like a lot of champs in the W. She's won a bunch of Euro leagues. So yeah. Anyhow, Maya Moore, just like one of the greatest players ever in the league, and I think that's like pretty definitive. Some people's GOAT. Shout out Maya Moore. Congratulations on your jersey retirement. Pretty awesome.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed watching it. Enjoyed kind of seeing people a little teary-eyed. I saw Cheryl Reeve and a few people a little teary-eyed. Maya Moore herself also. Just really nice to see. Really, really nice moment for her and for the franchise.
Yeah.
Okay. Fun question time. Let's go.
Here we go. Fun question time. You might have to step in and correct me because I actually didn't see this happen live. So just to let fans know what's going on.
Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, you set up the visual.
So last week I was watching a Storm game, and apparently was it NECA who wore the t-shirt?
Yeah, I think it was
So
NECA
they
wearing.
said this
I
on
would
the
dig into.
broadcast. So I didn't see a photo of it, but they said on the broadcast that NECA Gumike arrived. You know how they're always obsessed with the game fits. Arrived to the game wearing a Skylar Diggins Smith T-shirt, like her on the T-shirt. So that's the setup for this.
Okay, so the question is to Cathryn and to me, if we had to wear a T-shirt or jersey with the face of the other on the said jersey,
Yeah.
like what's the strategy? Like how do we do it? Where do we do it? Like what's up?
I immediately knew what I wanted my T-shirt of you to be, and I have no idea what your T-shirt of me would be. I truly have no clue at all.
Okay, I want to hear yours first.
Okay, so for our listeners may not know, Freddie, we've talked about you being a clown performer, but you are also a puppeteer.
That's right. I'm
Like
a weirdo, guys.
Yeah, and Freddie has an act he has two stage acts that I'm going to reference here. Okay, one is with a lamb chop puppet. Okay, like if you were a child of the 90s, like lamb chop, play along, where kids come along and sing along, lamb chop. Okay,
Lamb
a very
chop.
cute lamb puppet, and he does this thing where the puppet is dancing to Dancing on My Own by Robin. Okay, Freddie has another act where he wears his high school basketball jersey.
That's right.
Okay, so I want to combine the two. I want you in the basketball jersey, your high school basketball jersey, with the lamb chop puppet and the singer Robin together dancing.
That's amazing. Wow.
That's the T-shirt.
You nailed it. This is a good T-shirt. Again, are you just going to wear it out and about?
Hell yeah. I'll probably wear it to the gym.
Wow. You're like, I'll get some sweat stains on that pretty quick, dude.
I imagine amazing. This is a T-shirt that I could easily order a second one of if I needed to.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's my T-shirt of you.
Okay, here is my my T-shirt of Cathryn.
Oh my God.
You ready for this?
Oh, so I'll never be ready.
Went a little bit deep.
There's God.
Couple angles here, but here's my angle. For anyone that knows Cathryn well.
Oh God.
And I don't know how much we've talked about it on this podcast because it's NBA related.
But it's WNBA related.
So yeah, but this sorry is NBA related. But yeah, because it's exactly.
Oh, got it. Sorry. Yeah.
But the former head coach of the Toronto Raptors, Nick Nurse, Cathryn has been like obsessed with Nick Nurse for a long time. And on her podcast Buckets and Tea, she used to have Nick Nurse Hottie Highlight. And just has been a big Nick Nurse fan, like for before other people were, honestly. And so there's this moment where her and another friend went to see Nick at the Toronto Jazz Fest. Okay. So this is, I think, one of the moments where it verged into like, how serious is this gonna get? You know what I mean? Like, and
wait, for a quick added context, Nick Nurse was performing with Prince's band,
yes,
the New Generation, at Toronto Jazz Festival. That's what I went to see.
Okay, yeah, so Nick Nurse is like he's like sort of like a hobbyist musician. I think he has a decent amount of talent, but he enjoys trying to be jazzy, right? And so anyhow, my T-shirt is a artistic recreation of you like watching a band in the distance on a stage, like in a crowd, but it's like everyone's like sort of silhouetted except you.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, you have like hearts for eyes, and you're looking at Nick Nurse, and then he's also silhouetted like soloing, like kind of like on the shoulder or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it does have a bit of writing, and the writing is every nurse needs a doctor. And then I don't know how I make that all sort of work, but it does. Okay, it's like I hire someone. Listen, Tristan Douglas, who did our art, he could make it work. I could tell him these ideas, and he'd be like, I got it. You know?
Yeah. Okay, hold on. I'm not a doctor, though.
I know, and I didn't think that part through. But the saying the saying works, you know, like, because it's like, or it could be like, hello nurse or something like that. But I'm like, I don't know. Every nurse needs a doctor. I'm like, that's not a real saying. Like, you know, as someone that works in a hospital, that's not actually true. But it's just, it's just, I don't know. It just got a ring to it that
All right. Well, we can work on the caption.
Yeah. Thank you.
If anyone has any caption suggestions, let Freddie know.
I mean,
that is absolutely wild. All right. I like it. That was very funny. People might be confused by the fact that I had a crush on Nick Nurse, but you have to understand the Raptors won a championship. He was wearing very interesting suits. This was before all the coaches were just wearing like fleece zip ups or whatever. Okay, which I absolutely hate. He was playing guitar, he plays piano, he sings a little, he's an avid record collector. Like, he's just an interesting person beyond being a coach.
Yeah, he's
and
that's
yeah. And that's what drew me to him. And then I used to have a Nick Nurse hottie highlight of the week, but then once all the coaches stopped dressing up, then I couldn't do that anymore. So now it's just a hottie highlight of the week.
Right.
That I do on the Buckets and Tea NBA show. And even that, it's like, it's still a personality driven thing. I almost called it an award. But it's still like, because your personality is what makes you hot. That's the theory.
It's a good theory.
That's how I feel about the world.
I mean,
you can be objectively very good looking, but if you're a piece of shit, I'm not going to be attracted to you. It's just how it works.
Here.
Yeah. All right. That was a bizarre, Freddie, fun question, I think.
It was, but I'll still say this. Engelbert, if you're listening, we got all sorts of ideas, weird ones too.
We could put together really fun t-shirts of different players that showcase their personalities and what we know of them. Because you know what I mean? Like, even with the Liberty, like if you took the stars of the Liberty and then added Ellie the elephant, and then they were like all doing fun poses. And
this is a future FFQ.
And it could be like a silhouette of all of them.
This is good.
People, we get that t-shirt.
Okay, how about
we need to just make our own merch, Freddie?
We do. How about a double frame? One, you got a Copper pointing at Cunningham, and the next you have them in a huddle on the same team, being like, "Yeah, how's it going?" Right?
Sure, I love it. I'm sure people did make merch of Kalia Copper when she stared down Sophie Cunningham.
They did, but I mean, like, you gotta okay, now they're on the same team. Now, what's up with that? So you gotta make it right.
All right, we should wrap that up there.
Wrap it up.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, for tuning in. Appreciate you. Do we have to remind people to like and subscribe? We probably should.
We just did, you know? Like, subscribe, help us out.
Do it. Somebody on our YouTube channel suggested that I do chapters. This is a great suggestion, although I don't currently know how to do that. So that's something I need to work on. We'll try and figure something out. So just, please be patient with us. We're not tech savvy people, and we do all of this ourselves. So thank you all so much, and hope you enjoyed the episode.
Yeah,
hope I didn't sound too tipsy.
You sound great. You're good.
And yeah, you're like, actually, you should have vodka coolers more often.
I know.
In the sun. And we'll catch you next week.
All right. Peace, everybody.
All right. Bye.
See ya.